I love bringing Latinos on who make moves and are making waves,
Mm.
but I especially love when I bring on a fellow catracho.
I'm from
Um,
Uruguay.
oh, I thought you were catracho.
No, I just have a lot of followers who are from Honduras, so they always give me stuff. But no, no, no. Yeah, that's why I always have the jersey on and stuff. But we could talk about that too.
I was like,
I'm a bit of everything
all right, I'm
nowadays.
gonna kick you off my show then. I'm just like, so you're from Uruguay, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom is from Mexico. My dad's from Uruguay. I was born in Uruguay, and then I moved to the United States when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Hmm.
Why did your family move?
Well, it's a complicated story. My dad's is a professor at Texas A&M. My mom was here with a temporary visa since like 95, 96. Then in 96, my older brother was born here in the US. So when she went to renew her visa, they rejected it because she had a kid here born in the US. So they deported her to Mexico. And then my dad would go visit her, and then she would got pregnant again. And I was born in Uruguay, and then it took a couple of years for her to fix her status and then come back to the US with my dad. It's a very complex story, but yeah,
Is that his? Is that history why you got into learning more about the immigration system? I'm like, I mean, how did first of all, why did she get? Because you're the perfect person to ask this, right? Why did
yeah.
her visa get denied because she had a kid born in the United States?
So when she was here with like a temporary visa, you had to go in. You could only be here a certain amount of time, and then you had to go out and then renew it and then come back in. But obviously, with a temporary visa, you're not really supposed to be having kids in the U.S. because that kind of signals that you plan on staying longer
Right.
than the visa stipulates. So that's why she got it denied, and she was denied reentry, deported to Mexico, and given un castigo, as we say it in Spanish. And then she had to wait in Mexico for a bit, and then in Uruguay because we had family in both. But eventually, she moved to Uruguay, and then we came back to the U.S. around 2002, 2003.
And so, I mean, I don't know where to start with you, but like, I guess how did you get involved in activism? I saw you just did somebody commented on one of your TikToks and I think you pinned it. Like who is this guy and why what
Oh
is he
yeah, yeah,
changing?
yeah,
And you kind of went that's a really good summary if everybody wants to go to your TikTok and check out that video. Really good
yeah,
summary of like who you are.
yeah,
But
for
go through
sure.
that a little bit.
Like I said here, I moved to the United States, College Station, Texas, specifically when I was 4 or 5 years old, around there, and I just started pre-K, kinder, all that. And the school district that I went to, if you have like a certain amount of kids whose first language is Spanish, they have a dual language program. So I was in the dual language program and basically grew up around a bunch of immigrant kids as well who were also in my classes. But when you're young, you don't really realize things. Everything's just kind of
Right.
normal.
Right.
You see things, that's just how the world works. And when I started getting older, around 14, 15, I was like, I wanted to be a soccer player when I was growing up, but I was like, I don't know, that seems kind of like too out there.
Uruguay,
Like,
man.
what?
Uruguay. You got to be a
Yeah,
soccer player.
exactly. It's a passion for everyone. So I was like, what else can I do, And I just started kind of getting involved in different organizations at school, outside of school. And around then was 2015 when the elections were going on, or the primaries were starting. And I remember I was on Facebook watching soccer videos, and then I got an advertisement from this guy called Bernie Sanders, and he was talking about immigration and income inequality and education and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that seems kind of interesting, like I don't really know much about like politics, to be honest, but this guy seems kind of interesting. And the little thing I did know was that around that same time, that's when Trump had announced and he said Mexicans are rapists and criminals and all this. So I was like, well, I don't really like that guy. This guy seems kind of cool. Bernie Sanders talking on Facebook advertisements. So I started checking him out more and more. And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That's a good idea. So I was like, well, how can I help this guy? It seems cool. And I saw a lot of young people were getting involved in his campaign and stuff. At that time, I was around 17 years old, 16, 17. So I reached out to the local Democratic Party in my area and I was like, hey, how can I help this guy? And they're like, well, we don't like it's a small town, so we don't really help specific candidates. But what we do is we help register voters, and we need a lot of Spanish speakers because most of the people who volunteer only speak English, and there's a big Latino population here. So if you could help, you could just go around and translate for people. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I started going around door to door and, hey, hi, how are you? Mi nombre es Carlos, estoy aquí para registrarte para que votes en las próximas elecciones. Started registering people, and then just through there, I'm sure you had the same experience through activism, through nonprofit work. You kind of just meet new people. So one of the people I was volunteering with, they were involved in this organization called Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network. And they're like, oh, you speak very well English and Spanish. You should come help us with our citizenship classes that we do every weekend. And I was like, oh, citizenship classes, that's cool. My mom actually became a citizen a couple of years back, and I helped her with the questions. So I think I should be good for them. So I started going to those classes when I was a junior and a senior in high school, and I really enjoyed it. I would go for around 4 hours every Saturday, teach one class in English and then one in Spanish. And it just seemed very gratifying. So I was like, I like this politics stuff. I like this community activism stuff. I'm going to keep seeing what other opportunities there are to get involved. And for me personally, there was like this moment where I just had like this switch, where you start looking at the world a bit differently, where everywhere you go, you try to see where there's issues, where people need help, and then you start just thinking about solutions for those issues. So like the citizenship classes, like, oh well, like I'm useful. I can translate for people. So in my school, I was like, how can I get involved? And there was a lot of kids on the soccer team, so I still played soccer in high school, and a lot of the kids were coming from Central America, from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, etc. And they were just coming to the U.S. and they didn't know any English. And to pass your classes in high school, or you need to know English, and you can't play soccer unless you pass your classes, because that's kind of the requirement. You can't play unless you pass.
Right.
So there was a lot of really good kids at my school, but they couldn't play on the team because they couldn't pass their classes. So I was like, I told the soccer coach, I'm like, hey, I'm starting to get more involved in this stuff, and I really enjoy it. Like, I could help tutor these kids to help them, pass their classes so we can play. He's like, yeah, that's a great idea. We kind of got that sorted out. So now I was teaching citizenship classes over the weekend. During the week, I was doing translation and homework help for immigrant kids in my school. And I was like, I'm really passionate about this. And I just started seeing more and more ways to get involved. And when I graduated high school, I was like, I really want to dedicate my life to this, because growing up, I always had that privilege, that opportunity, that my dad's a professor. So I was always surrounded by books and opportunities to get involved places and do all these sorts of things. And a lot of my friends never had those same opportunities. So I was like, I couldn't really feel this urge to kind of use my position to help those who haven't had those same opportunities and also be connected with the community. So I just kept getting more involved. And then after high school, when I was getting ready to go to college, I went to Vassar College in New York. But the summer before, I was like, I want to do something like cool. I like helping people's organizations, but I want to do something that's my own. So me and my friends were talking, and we were like, well, there's like, we were like, well, what problems is there? What issues is there? And then we went to Facebook, and we see these advertisements: soccer camp for kids over the summer, but you have to pay $400, $500 for 3 days. And me and my friends were like, well, we know a little bit about soccer. Why don't we just start coaching kids for free? Yeah. We have some free time. So we posted on Facebook. We're like, hey, comunidad de Bryan College Station, yo soy Carlos y yo y mis amigos queremos hacer un campamento para niños. Si ustedes quieren, if you want to, show up to this park around 5 p.m. tomorrow, and we're going to be coaching kids. And then some kids started showing up that next day, and they're like, oh, we're going to tell more kids. So they started telling more kids and more families. And by the end of that summer, we had organized a full-blown camp for over 100, 200 kids. That was back in 2017. And I was like, wow, like, this is really awesome. Like, we really have the power to do a lot, even though I'm young, even though I don't really know this world a lot. Back then I didn't. I was like, I can still make a change. So I actually created a nonprofit organization based on that work. It's called Fútbol para el Futuro, Football for the Future. And, that just kind of set me off. People at the fields were like, hey, do you know anyone who can help me with this, help me with that? And I just started like realizing more and more issues that when I was growing up, I was like, they were just normal, but when I got older, I was like, I have the power to actually do something about these issues, whether it be a soccer camp for low-income kids, teaching citizenship classes, or whatever. I can do something. So in college, I decided to major in political science and Latin American studies, with my focus of, or my mind being set on, when I graduate, I want to do nonprofit work, social work, something along those lines. And I think in life, it's really interesting when you have your heart set on something, life just throws you opportunities that
Right.
fall right into place. And now that I look back at it, it was like really amazing that this happened. So my friend back in 2019, he gets detained by immigration. One of my friends that I've been a lifelong friend, he's from Belize. He got detained by immigration, and he was like, he reached out to me while he was in detention because he's seen all the work I did. He's like, maybe you know someone who can help me, and the judge is asking for a letter about someone who knows me, who can maybe vouch for me, say I'm a good person, that I shouldn't get deported. So I wrote him a letter, and out of curiosity, I was like, hey, is there anyone else detained with you who needs help, who needs someone to talk to, someone, just anything. And he was like, well, I have these friends from Guatemala and these from Honduras. They're here seeking asylum. They've been detained for a couple months. So he sent me their information, and I started writing to them and sending them money. And then I started getting more and more and more contacts. And I turned that into a nonprofit as well. It's called Detained Refugee Solidarity Fund. So at this point, I was doing soccer camps for kids over the summer, teaching citizenship classes on the weekend, writing to detained immigrants and raising funds for them. And I was like, yo, this is like my whole life now. Now that I
Yeah.
look back at it, I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm really passionate about this. Um, so I was just looking to get involved in everything I could do. And I was super involved until the pandemic happened. And then they're like, you can't, no soccer camps, no visiting people in detention centers, no nothing. You have to stay home. I was like, damn, this really sucks, because I enjoy being around people. And then I was like, well, maybe this is another opportunity. As we were just mentioning, the pandemic kind of forced everyone to rethink the way they work and the work they do. So I was like, I can't go and do soccer camps in person or teach citizenship classes in person. But what about social media? I haven't really looked into it too much, but let's give it a shot. And around that time, um, I remember every day friends were sending me TikTok videos. And for the longest time, I was one of those first people that I was like, TikTok is just so stupid. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like, stop sending me these videos. They're so dumb. It's like 6 seconds, 10 seconds of people
Right,
dancing,
right,
just doing
right.
silly things. And then it clicked to me. I was like, if everyone is on this platform, it must be for a reason. My problem is not the platform, it's the content that's on that
How they
platform that
use
doesn't get
it.
all my attention. But I was like, why don't I do what I do? I'm not gonna dance, I'm not gonna sing, I'm not gonna do trends. I'm
Right.
gonna, do what I do and fill that gap, which back in March of 2020, there wasn't anyone who was doing what I'm doing. Now there's a lot of people who have started doing similar things, but no one was really doing giving news or community help, and let alone in Spanish. So I was like, I'm gonna just start trying this. I'm gonna upload some videos, see what happens. I'm familiar with Facebook, Instagram, but it's very hard to go viral on those platforms. So I kind of just kept it to my close friends. So I was like, my first video, I was like, what is something I'm passionate about? Okay, citizenship classes. Let's see. A lot of people want to know about that. And I uploaded a video. Mi gente, si quieres hacerte ciudadano de los Estados Unidos, mira este video. I just very quick, the requirements for becoming a citizen are this, and that. You have to take this test. And if you want to learn the 100 questions for the citizenship test, follow me and comment. I uploaded that video. I had 0 followers at the time. The next day, I checked my phone. That video was at 50,000 views, and I was like at a couple thousand followers. And I was like, yo, what is going on? Like, this is different. And then I understood. I'm like, this is why people like TikTok, because it's not like any other platform we've seen before. You can upload your content, but there's this exposure to people who have never seen you before. So like, oh, this motivated me. So I started uploading all the 100 questions and doing all this other video. And then by April of 2020, so a month into TikTok, I was at 40,000 followers. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. And that it just started taking off to where I now have 2.4 million followers on TikTok, 100 something thousand on Facebook and Instagram. And it just completely changed my life. Now I go out in public a lot of times, especially like in Latino areas, and people be like, tú eres el de TikTok, ¿verdad? Que hace los videos ayudando a la gente. I'm like, sí, so yo. Actually, today I'm here in the valley, and I was in the bathroom at this gas station, and this guy was just looking at me. I was like, yo, like, what's going on? Why are you looking at me? And he's like, a ti te conozco, ¿verdad? Tú haces videos en TikTok. I was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, it's just mind blowing how the work I was doing, I was able to adapt to a new platform and reach so many people and have this opportunity to impact. So it's been awesome. But that's basically kind of how I went from not knowing what I wanted to do to seeing a Bernie Sanders ad on Facebook to now having millions of followers on social media. It's been a crazy couple of years.
How many times have you told that story? Because that's like a really good fucking. You just took us on a journey, like real
Yeah.
quick.
No, I mean, a lot of times people will be like, you know, I find myself having to tell it a lot of times because one of the things on social media is people meet you based on what they see on their videos. And that's what that video you had mentioned that I pinned on my TikTok where I explained my life. A lot of people before they meet me, they're like, oh, he just uploads and does this community help just to get views on TikTok and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, this is like from way beyond. Like, I've been doing this since I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
So I actually do tell my story a lot of times, and people are very interested by it because it was just so random, and that's what I'm saying. Where like sometimes in life you're just like lost and you don't really know what to do. But if your heart's in the right place, like these opportunities will come to you. Like I was just scrolling, watching soccer videos, and then a Bernie Sanders advertisement showed up. Like had that never happened, who knows? Like I would have maybe never been where I am today. But I knew in my heart that I wanted to do something to help others. I just kind of wasn't sure how. And then that set off a chain of events and the citizenship classes and the block walking and registering voters and then the soccer camp and then the detained immigrants and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just yeah, I'm just kind of looking forward to the future and see what's next.
I was about to say, next stop, you're gonna be in the fucking Congress and shit, man. Like,
No, that's
cause
what a lot of people tell me, like, oh, are you gonna run for office? I'm like, I never at one point I was like, I really wanted to do it. And then when I started getting more into TikTok and stuff and like getting bigger on social media, I realized that there is like a lot of stress, especially when you do like community help. Um, there's like a lot of mental health aspect to it where like having people constantly watching you and being on top of like what you're doing. There was this one week where I like didn't upload a video for a week and I was getting messages of people like, "Estás bien? ¿Qué pasó?" And I was like, damn, I can't even breathe anymore with like, and it's a good thing, people like trust you, that they're worried about you. But I was like, nah, I don't want to be in Congress and all that to have people like asking you questions all the time. But then I was like excited when this new government came into power, and then I just started seeing how like it's just kind of the same. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should run for Congress eventually. So it's something that I've considered. But like I was mentioning, what I want to do is just keep helping, keep using my platform, keep preparing myself, and then wherever I end up is where I'm meant to end up. And that's basically it. I kind of came to terms with myself that my real goal in life is to be able to say the day I die or where I'm reaching the end of my life, I can look back and say, the world is a better place because of what I did. People, I can point to people and say, I helped this person with this and they're now doing this, and it is gratifying. And I've had a lot of those opportunities. And that's basically what I want to keep doing, whether it just be social media full time, as a lawyer, as a politician, whatever, but never lose sight of what it was that really motivated me to start with everything. And actually, I'm not home right now. I'm in my girlfriend's house here in the valley, but in my room back home and also in my apartment, I have on the walls like all the letters that I've gotten from immigrants that are detained, all these thank you texts that I've gotten, all these like little plaques, and like just people gift me a lot of things. And I always keep that around me to kind of remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But yeah, that's basically my story in a
but about
nutshell.
joining Congress, I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, you have more reach than most people in Congress, right? There's people like you're
Mhm.
saying, like you're being recognized by people all over. Those people probably wouldn't recognize their own congressperson, right, or
Yeah.
their own senator, but they recognize you.
No, yeah, and that's really interesting that yeah you say that because I was the other day I was just thinking I'm like I was because I follow Pablo, Pablo from Latino Rebels. Also, I follow him on Twitter all the time, and then I've been talking to him recently, and he's telling me about like, oh, a lot of like people in these nonprofit organizations, and they're the ones that kind of influence Congress. And then I'm like, who are these people? Because now that I don't want to be like, oh, well, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but like realistically, I'm probably one of the people with the largest followings among the Latino community talking about these specific issues. And I was like, if they can do it and they don't have the same following that I have, like I can do it too. I can become a nonprofit director, or I can get into Congress, or I can, whatever. But then my mom always jokes with me. She's like, you could, but the bad thing is most of the people who follow you can't even vote. And I was like, that's like true, but it's also sad because it's
Yeah.
people who have been here for years and years and years, and they're interested in U.S. politics, current events. I mean, they're contributing to society, they're doing everything right, you know, and they don't have an opportunity to vote. So it's also like motivates me more to be the voice for those people who don't have that voice, at least politically. But it is something I'll consider definitely for sure in the future. But right now, mostly like I said, just focusing on what I'm doing and just kind of finishing law school, getting that out of the way, becoming a lawyer, and then from there seeing what the panorama looks like and see what's next in my life.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're perfect. I mean, you are a model. You are an example of somebody, like you said. You keep saying heart in the right place. That's exactly right, right? Because there's a lot of people who would have saw the Bernie Sanders ad and been like, okay, whatever, kept scrolling. Or
Yeah,
people, hey, I need your help. Hey, I can't help you. Sorry. But you like,
yeah,
and the fact that you asked that guy who was detained, hey, is any other people
yeah, yeah, yeah.
detained with you? People wouldn't ask that question, right?
Mm,
The other thing that's, I mean, what I noticed about you as I'm Latino, I'm born here. Your Spanish is impeccable and your English is impeccable. And so, like, let
mm.
this be an advertisement to all Latino kids. Make sure you keep your Spanish and keep your English, because that's, I mean, you think you that must be a big reason or big tool in you helping people, that you're
Yeah.
so fluent in Spanish and so fluent in English.
Yeah, no, it's actually funny because right now I'm even having issue like expressing some of my thoughts because I'm like I've told this story, but I always tell it in Spanish. So one of my goals for this year is like I really want to get more of my content in English because right now everything is in Spanish and people always comment, they'll be like, why don't you say the same thing in English? And one of the reasons is that I've always been scared about the pushback because you know within your own community you obviously have like the people who are always gonna disagree with you and they're a bit more conservative thinking and they're against a lot of the ideas that I advocate for. But for the most part, within our community, I get a lot of support. And one of the things I've been fearful of is, you know, when I start making things in English, like the hate is gonna be scaled up 1,000%. And then at this year, I was like, you know, why am I even scared? You know, I have a big community behind me. I'm confident in my abilities. You know, I'm going to start kind of doing more content in English and really getting the word out there because one of my big goals is beyond just helping people day to day and giving that important information is really try to shape the way or redefine the way that the United States as a whole thinks about the immigrant community, about Latinos in general, because it is really sad to see how people who have never interacted with the community have such a negative perspective of Latinos here in the United States. But as someone who day to day, I mean, literally all day, I'm either speaking with people or doing videos or doing research, you know, you really see the community for what it is. And I want to be one of those people that changes the perspective or not necessarily changes, but shows the true Latinos here in the US because we have this bad reputation among a lot of people who don't want us here, but it's just not who we are. So I am pushing more towards the English side of things. And as far as Spanish go, you know, it's been a great help. I'm always grateful for my parents, for them always speaking Spanish at the house and correcting me and all that kind of thing. Because now that I grow up, I realize how useful it is to communicate with people within my community. Because there's a lot of Latinos here in the U.S. who still struggle with English and being able to communicate with them as well as with other people who are maybe second, third generation or people who aren't part of the community whose first language is English. I'm able to kind of play both sides and get my message out to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and changing the you're actually helping. I think people who are undocumented who listen to your videos probably are so grateful that you care about them, because a lot of them feel like nobody wants them here, right? Even like a lot of Latinos, right? My wife was a dreamer. She was born in Juarez. She was brought
Mm,
here when she was 3, and she lived here undocumented until she was in her 20s, until I
mm,
married her. But when she first told me that she was undocumented, she's like, back then they said illegal, right? She's like, I'm
mm,
illegal. And I'm like, oh well. She was afraid to tell me, right? But my best friend at the time was undocumented, right? Chilango from DF, and so I was like, oh, fine, whatever. And
yeah.
that, because there's so many people who, you know, it's the law's fault that certain people are undocumented, certain people
Mm,
can't do this. But although, like your mom said, that undocumented people can't vote, they just, in New York, they just passed that law where
yeah.
immigrants, I think undocumented immigrants, all you have to do is show resident that you
Yeah. Yeah.
live
Yeah.
in New York and you can vote. That's awesome.
Yeah. Hold up. Okay, it's because I've been sick the last couple of days, so I needed to clear my throat. But yeah, and that's kind of the message that I wanna bring to people because yeah, like I always tell my mom when she tells me that, she tells it jokingly. She knows, a lot of
Right,
people
right.
who, not everyone who watches me is undocumented, but I always tell her, I'm like, undocumented people can't vote, but they move votes because they have kids, they have siblings, they have friends, they have coworkers, so maybe they can't directly vote, but they sure as hell can be involved in the political process. And one of the things I really try to push to the community is, we have the ability to express ourselves because there is, like you were mentioning, a lot of shame, a lot of people who have internalized this idea that they don't have a voice here, that they don't have rights here. They kind of just put up with it. They're like, I'm here to work. That's it. If I get exploited, I just find another job. I just keep going. I don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to do any of that. And a lot of what I want to do is kind of change that narrative and empower those people who are going through situations like that to express themselves and also show that they're not alone because a lot of undocumented people, what they feel is that they've been abandoned by those who got here, fixed their status, and
Right.
now have forgotten about them. It's the classic analogy of going up the ladder and then pulling it from under so no one else can come up. So a lot of, I think the appeal that I got early on was people were like, whoa, this guy is a citizen and he's advocating for us because that's very rare. Because most citizens, they just feel like, they fix their status and, I'm good. That's the end of the
Yeah.
story. But what I try to advocate for is a broader community feeling, what affects my friend or what affected my mom or what affects my anyone in my community also affects me. I'm not the one who's at risk of being deported. I'm not the one who's being at risk of having my family be separated, but my friend is, and that matters to me. And I shouldn't be selfish and say, I'm fine. If something happens to him, that's his problem. He shouldn't have broken the laws or whatever, the arguments are. I'm like, no, that's not okay. And if I have the ability to advocate for him and advocate alongside him, I'm going to do it. And I almost feel an obligation to do it because my parents always taught me that, if you have, you should help those who don't have the same things you have. So it's in Spanish, where donde come uno, comen dos, y donde comen dos, comen cuatro. It's the same idea. So it would be wrong of me, and I wouldn't be able to really live with myself, just kind of distancing myself and say, I have citizenship. I'm in law school. I'm doing fine. I'll just, forget about y'all. It's not about that to me. To me, it's we either all succeed together or we all fall together. I kind of see it in that way.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, and you're Uruguayo, you're Uruguayan. You're like, you're and a lot of people you're advocating for are Mexican, Guatemalan, Central American. A lot of them, right? So that's rare. I mean, to what you're saying, like my grandma, immigrated legally, and she doesn't. She's, she was with Trump, build a wall and all that shit, right? Like, because she's like, well, if we came legally, they can come legally too. And a lot of people don't understand. Like, one, you know, um, especially Honduras, Guatemala, like you're leaving places that are dangerous. Like you gotta go, you gotta
Yeah.
leave, you gotta like. It's not like, oh, there's no jobs here. No, it's like you're in danger,
Mm,
and like that's just rare. Like yeah, with privilege comes obligation, right?
yeah.
Like privilege is a bad word, right? Because people whatever, but like if you have privilege, if you use it for good, then that's what you're supposed to use privilege for, right? Like it's the people who have privilege and they don't, and they just use it to better themselves.
Yeah, and that's actually something I've reflected a lot on because early on it was something I was like, it's not fair, that like, I came from a stable household. My dad was a professor, so we had a stable income, and like I felt guilty about it, but then I like, that motivates me more because my thinking is I'm not, we didn't do anything wrong. The problem is, or my goal is that everyone else has the same opportunities that I had. I didn't do anything wrong by taking advantage of these opportunities, by going to college, by going to law school. I would be doing something wrong if I took advantage of these opportunities and didn't help others have
Right.
those same opportunities. And that's what I want. So privilege is something that you just kind of have to accept. And you should feel bad about it if you don't do anything with it. But if you're helping and you're doing the best you can, I think that's something really powerful, and a lot of people will appreciate it. And that's really what I always tell people. My reason for supporting immigrants is because it's not fair that people have to risk their lives, fear deportation, fear family separation, and all these horrible things just to have the same opportunities that I had. You know, I'm not anyone special. I'm not like, oh, look at me. I'm a citizen, therefore I'm better than everyone. You know, I'm human like everybody else. And if I had these opportunities to go to school, to work, to fight for my dreams, then why can't anyone else have those same opportunities? So that's really that I'm really glad you brought that up because there seems to be this taboo. People don't want to talk about their background or want to make
Right.
themselves seem like they came from a harder situation than they actually came from. I'm like, no, you know, if I'm being honest, I never really struggled myself. My parents always took care of me. You know, we had a stable household, but that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to recognize and be, you know, that's what motivates me because if I didn't have to worry about deportation and all these other things growing up, why should anyone else have to worry about that? That's not fair. And that's why I'm advocating for changes in the system so everyone can say, I had a stable childhood. I was able to play with my friends instead of having to worry about my dad getting deported or not, you know? So
A lot of
that's really,
but a lot of I mean, I agree with you completely, right? I'm that dude in my group, right? The fucking they call me the socialist. But like a lot of people don't feel that way, right? A lot of people feel like, you know, dog eat dog. You know, especially like you know, in immigrant community, it's almost like everybody shares, but also everybody's like one for themselves, you know.
yeah.
So that's interesting. Like, what about the people around you? Like, what do they think about your newfound fame? Like the friends you grew up with, your family, your girlfriend. What do they like? You know, what do they say?
No,
It
I
must be
think
weird for them.
for sure, like I said, this is kind of new, the social media aspect, but like the activism has always been part of what I do. And throughout my whole life, everyone around me has been very supportive. In fact, I have some friends who like told me back, like, I remember especially one friend, he's from actually from Honduras, and he's kind of like my mentor. He's a DACA recipient and he's a public speaker and everything. I remember back in 2018, we were having a conversation. He's like, I don't think you realize it now, but like what you're doing, like sooner or later, you're gonna get a lot of recognition and you're gonna have a lot of people following you. And you might not believe me now, but like it's gonna happen. And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, you know, maybe like because at that point I was like already kind of well known within my community, but it was a small community. And he's like, no, trust me, I'm like, I'm older than you. I've been in these circles for a long time. There's very few people who are able to do what you do and do it in the way you do it and connect with the community so genuinely. Because I think one of the things I pride myself in, it's not like forced. I'm not like I don't feel like I'm being someone else when I'm making videos and where I'm helping people. You know, that's just who I am. And he told me it's gonna happen. I was like, all right. And then when I got to my first couple thousand followers on TikTok, I messaged him like, yo, I think that thing you told me about, it's actually happening. And then next thing you know, I was on Telemundo, Univision, and all these other outlets. So yeah, I've been blessed to have a friend group and girlfriend, parents, everyone who's really supportive of everything that I do and kind of sees that same vision because sometimes I even get lost. I'm like, you know, there's so much work to do. Like, what do I even do? Like, what's next? But that's what family and friends are there for to kind of fall back on and when you're feeling low or just kind of help pick you back up and then also when you're on top, you know, kind of celebrate with you. So I've been blessed with those relationships.
I think it's amazing that like people on TikTok, like you specifically, are using TikTok that way. Because like that, is, like what you said in the beginning, like TikTok came and my wife was like, everybody's on TikTok, baby. I'm like, I don't care. I didn't download it, whatever. Because I just saw the dances, right? Everybody's doing the same dance. That's how it started in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was doing the same dance, this, that, and the other. And I was like, it's boring, you know? It just bored me. But then I found out people like you, very few people, more people now, but I mean, the way you do it is because that's what social media is for, right? Where you're connecting with people, and if you're not sharing information, if you're not giving encouragement, inspiration, then you're kind of part of the problem, or you're a distraction. And people don't need to be distracted because there's so much that needs to be taken care of, right? Immigration is just one, right? I'm sure there's a whole climate TikTok community. I'm sure there's a whole
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah, and I see myself as being like a balance within social media because I obviously like everyone else, I enjoy watching dog videos and
Yeah,
watching, you know, all these funny things.
yeah.
But there also needs to be, like you say, a bit of a serious aspect to it because I mean the truth is, the world we're in, there's a lot of issues and one of the best ways to connect with people nowadays is social media and to get things done. I mean, I've been able to do things through social media that would have never happened well if I didn't use social media. So I think it's just bringing that balance, and people, that's what they like. Oh, I'll watch Carlos, and then yeah, I'll watch some news, and then I'll watch some dog videos, and then some dancing videos, and then like you said, there's like whole areas of TikTok. Like, I mean, the algorithm is just crazy. It'll take you everywhere. So I think people like having a bit of that balance, and I think it's good for those platforms as well, because it gives them a bit more of diversity. Because there's people who tell me like, you're the only person I follow because everyone else on this app is like a waste of my time. And I'm like, well, I'm not that extreme either, but it makes sense. It's good for the platform, and it's good for the creators, and it's good for the community.
I mean, yeah, and take it from me, because I'm trying to be like less. I seem more political than I am. I really, I'm just chill. But like a lot of people who are trying to give information are like really political. And I'm sure you have your politics. You said Bernie Sanders, right? I think we have to. Do we have Bernie Sanders to thank for Carlos?
I mean, I would say yes. Nowadays that I supported him last election and everything. I've grown increasingly kind of pessimistic towards politics in general. At least like that. That's sort of like hoping, everything will be better if Bernie Sanders wins the election. I'm like a bit more pessimistic nowadays. I understand it's a lot more complex, but he definitely was someone who inspired me once I got more into politics and just learning, and then the people around his circle as well. But yeah, politics has always been at the core of what I do. And while there is a lot of views that I kind of I'm not 100% sure on, there is certain things that I 100% am aware that I don't agree with. And people try to say, I really like your content, but you're too political sometimes. And I'm like,
really?
It's yeah, and especially when I do community help, like I really like your community help. Or for example, one of the things we did very recently was the Rogel Aguilera, the truck driver who was sentenced to 110 years. Like I was one of the main people pushing the petition on social media and that kind of stuff. And a lot of people were like, I don't usually watch your videos because they're too political, but I like this that you're doing for him. And I'm like, but this is political as well,
right.
Because doing community work, the necessity for community work arises because failures in the political system. If we had a functioning government, I wouldn't need to be writing letter to detained immigrants, because that wouldn't be an issue that would exist.
Right.
Or I wouldn't need to be helping collect signatures for a guy sentenced to 110 years if minimum sentencing wasn't a thing. So these people like seeing others help people, those videos that always go viral of like giving a little kid something to eat, or like, helping a homeless person. But I'm like, that's political in nature, because homelessness exists because of political failures. So I can't just be fake and be like, oh, I don't care about politics. I like just helping homeless people and poor people and kids with this and that, because those problems exist because of politics. So I have to be political to a point because there's no option. That's just how I view it, especially with immigration. I can't just be the good guy like, oh, I'm going to go help immigrants who just got to the US, and not talk about politics, not advocate for a change, because that's really what we need, that change. So those problems never exist. And that's one of the biggest, now that we get to it, the biggest issue I have with my own content is sometimes I feel like, I would just give everything away, like go back to having 0 followers, just nothing, in exchange for the system to function a lot better. Because sometimes I feel like this dysfunction in the system is something that I've benefited from as well, because there wouldn't be a need for people like me if the system worked, but it doesn't work. So then there needs to be activists, there needs to be people who kind of help others. But I always remember this quote. I don't know who it's from. I saw it on Facebook. Or I always see things on Facebook.
You got from Facebook your whole life.
It's like a society that has superheroes is a society that has problems. And I hate when people glorify me and they're like, "Oh, you're a leader for the community, and you're my idol, you're my hero," and you're like, I like that. That makes me feel good, obviously. But I'm like, I wish I wasn't, because the reason I exist or the work I do exist is because the system's not working. And that's what makes me sad. It breaks my heart to know that people like me and people like other activists need to do this work. I wish it's really exhausting, you know. I'm sure you know that
I bet
advocacy.
no.
I wish I could just, you know, just hey, go home, watch Netflix with my girlfriend, go to sleep, wake up, do the same thing, you know. But these problems exist, and it's really discouraging, especially when you feel like you can't fix them yourself, which you can. You know,
You
there
can't.
needs to be the problems are much bigger than yourself, but it's just a lot that I think about on daily. I'm like, I'm happy that I was able to help this person. Like yesterday, I was volunteering at a shelter for immigrants here in McAllen. Catholic Charities has a refugee center where they take in immigrants who just crossed, and then they help them kind of connect to different parts of the United States. They buy the plane tickets and everything, and it's very rewarding. But then I'm like, it's very sad that this even exists. Like the need for this even exists is just so heartbreaking. Um, so it's one of those things that you just kind of have to come to terms with at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and it would we I from I guess all your followers, thank you for doing the work. Cause yeah, I know you must your life is being taken up by this work, but it's also interesting. Like people say, oh, calling or like if you look back, it looks like it was all planned your life, but like you were just making decision after decision after this day by day by day, right? Like what's the worst thing you saw in a detention center? And have you ever get like, are you starting to get recognized by like guards or anything like that? That'd be
Oh
weird.
no, so detention centers, it's like visitation. It's like a prison basically. Yeah, you can't go in. You have the glass wall and then the phone and then the person on the other side. And so I've never actually got to be inside of a detention center, just kind of like going to visit in the sense of like a prison visitation. But I get a lot of letters and people ask me that a lot, like, what's the worst thing you've heard? And then I start thinking about it and I'm like, the thing is, it's not like one thing, it's like the situation as a whole, because once you speak to so many people, the stories just kind of become this one big, like, I don't know, shared experience among the community where everyone who's been through that situation tells you the same things. And I'm like, it's sad, not the particular story, but the amount of stories is the sad
Yeah.
thing, you know, that it's not, oh, this one story really impacted me. It's all these stories impact me. And the volume of the stories, thousands upon thousands of people who have been hurt one way or another by this system. That's the thing that really hurts me, because you know, it's sad if there's like an isolated incident, something happens, you know, it's a tragedy, everyone's sad. But this is like been going on since before I was born, and now I'm 23 years old and it's still going on. And I hear stories from people back in 1990, this happened to me because of immigration issues. And I'm like, you know, that's the part that really gets me. Like, when is this gonna end? It's just like a never ending. It just seems that way. And then the thing with activism is you have victories, but there's more battles than you can win. You know,
Right.
you're like, oh, we helped this one person. In the time it took you to help one person not get deported, 1,000 more people have been deported, and 1,000 more have crossed and been detained by immigration and all this. And you're like, where does it end? It's just difficult. But as far as recognition goes, I was actually working at a shelter for unaccompanied minors. So when you cross the border without your parents, you're under 18, you get sent to like a shelter. And back in March, April, May, June, there was so many kids coming that there wasn't enough space in like the regular shelters that they have. So they had to create an emergency shelter in Dallas at the convention center. It held 2,500 kids. And I got offered to work there, help the kids, you know, just be there for them. So I was there for 2 months. And I remember the first day I was there, I walked in and a lot of the kids were just looking at me. And then they were like, oh, I know this guy. And then they like started whispering to each other. They're like, oh, yeah. And next thing you know, I had a line of like kids, like from ages 13 to 17. That was the ages of the kids at the shelter. They were lining up for my autograph. They were like, oh, yo soy de Honduras y yo veo tus videos. Yo soy de Guatemala. And this one kid was like, you know, it's actually like, this is going to sound crazy, but I always watch your videos. And I told myself the first thing I do when I come out of the detention, because they don't have their phones with them in there, like the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to watch your videos and see if you've said anything about the shelter that's going on right now. And what
That's
a coincidence that I found you
crazy.
here. Yeah. And I was like, that's powerful, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't know how to, and it's hard for me to come to terms with it, because I always think I'm like one of those people where I'm like, I have like people that I look up to, like celebrities and stuff, but I'm also not one of those people who's like, oh, like I would like I'm gonna ask him for my autograph and
Right,
like a
right, right.
picture and this kind of stuff. And to be like come to terms like people actually go out of their way to ask me for pictures and for autographs and stuff. I'm like, yo, this is a responsibility, and it's going back to the same as having it's like another form of privilege because not everyone can say I have the privilege of having 2 million followers or whatever amount I have right now. And to me, it's like an added responsibility. Some people are like, yo, you made it. You have like millions of followers. I'm like, I made what? Like, this is more fuel to what I'm doing because now if I had a responsibility before when I was 16, 17, 18, now that I'm 23 with millions of followers, I have an even bigger responsibility because I want to be one of those people that say, I use my platform for good, not just to profit off of it or whatever other people use their platform for. So it is something like that still is hard for me to come to terms with.
That's crazy. I mean, and you're like shaping up to be like the immigration lawyer. I think there's what's the guy Krupp. He's like whenever there's like a racial injustice,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
hire
yeah.
him. That's gonna be you, dude. With like anybody who's detained, anybody who has any immigration problems, you're gonna have like this huge. You're gonna be like, you're gonna be that guy in the news. Like whenever somebody's
Yeah.
detained, you're gonna be talking
No,
because
yeah,
people
yeah.
trust
And
you. People trust you. You know.
yeah, and that's the other thing is too. I really think about like what it is that I'm gonna do after I graduate, and that's actually something that's come through my mind. I'm like, like that seems really cool. But like I say, I really don't try to think too far into the future because I'm just like, I'm just gonna do what my heart tells me to do, and then I know I'm gonna end up where I have to be, whether it be like that, like you said, a lawyer, whatever it is that I'm doing. As long as I'm doing it with my heart and I'm doing it with the purpose of helping others, everything's gonna work out. And this whole TikTok adventure, the pandemic has shown me that planning is, I mean, it's good. It gives you a sense of direction, but beyond that, you can't really tell what's gonna happen. Because 3 years ago, you would have asked me what to do. Oh, I want to, I don't know. I would have told you a million things I want to do, but TikTok wouldn't have been on that list, because it didn't even exist back then. I didn't even know that happened. So for me to tell you within 3 years, I want to do this, for all I know, another platform could happen or something could life changing could happen in my life. I don't know. So I try to plan, I'm like, I'm going to go in this general direction. I'm going to keep helping people. I'm going to keep doing my work, and whatever life throws at me, that's where I'm going to end up.
Well, I mean, I'll let you get to it, man. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming on Latinish, man. The podcast. Let people know. I'm sure they know where to find you, but let them know where they can find you everywhere.
Yeah, 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 for sure. So it's Carlos Eduardo Espina, Carlos Eduardo Espina in English. It's on all platforms: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter's the only one that I like barely use it, and I probably should start using it more, especially now that I want to get more connected with kind of the networking aspect and the English aspect. Kind of push my influence a bit that way. So I'm trying to get more into Twitter as well. But Carlos Eduardo Espina on every platform.
But you were talking about hate, man. If you want to talk about hate, Twitter's where it's at, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't know why Twitter is one of those things that I was like, I don't know. I just never really have been into it. I've been into it in the sense like I like going on there and reading things like what people
Right.
tweet, but I've never been like making my own tweets. But I'm like, I'm gonna look into that as well because it's one of those platforms that's very established, has been around for a long time. And it is a very powerful network. I mean, the reason I'm here is because I'm pretty sure we met through Twitter or somehow.
Right.
I don't know. I retweeted someone or something, and then I don't know. But Twitter has that ability that not a lot of other platforms have. So yeah, I'm gonna look into it.
I mean, and final thought. I mean, I obviously, like you said, you keep doing good work, but every time you help somebody, there's two more people that need help. So obviously, the system has to change, right?
Yeah.
Because these people are just going to keep being created by the system. So what needs to happen?
Well, I think the best thing that can happen is getting people in positions of power who actually care about fixing the issues, because I've realized that, when I was young, I was like, wow, this guy like really cares. He's saying all these cool things. But I'm like, nah, I'm completely different now. I'm like, no, show me what you've done, not what you're saying you're gonna do, not what you say you care about. Like, show me what you've done. Like, I want to see your track record, especially with immigration. I see so many people, organizations, you name it, of people who claim they're advocating for the community, but what they're really looking after is fundraising money. They want to keep their position. They want to keep their seat at the table with politicians. And the last thing on their mind is actually getting anything done. And I'm like, like I told you, my platform happened because it happened. I didn't ask for it. If I could trade everything that I have for something to actually get done that helps my community, I would trade it right away. I would go to wherever I need to deposit my TikTok account and everything. You take it, give me an immigration reform, give me something. But I just start to see how so many people, and people are smart, politicians, everyone, organization leader, lawyers, and that's not to say everyone is bad. This is like a small minority who gets into these positions, but they're really good at using the language of, oh, I support the community. We need to do this. We need to do that. Chip in $5, chip in $10 to do this. And where we at? We haven't done anything. So what we really need is people who are truly down to make change happen and not just performatively or not give up, like with the whole parliamentarian thing. I think I had mentioned before, like, oh, the parliamentarian said this, that's the end of it. Like, if you really want something, you're going to go for it. And that's the type of people we need representing us. People who are, oh, there's an obstacle. Okay, we're going to see how we can get around it, but we're really going to see how we can get around it. Not just pretend we're looking, oh, okay, this is the plan C, plan D, whatever you want to call it. No, we need people who actually care about the community and who feel the community, because one of the slogans that I came up with the other day, I was on Telemundo, it just came out. I was like, the difference between senators and those, it was when the Senate, what's his name, Manchin said that he wasn't going to approve whatever, and then the plan C is in there. But I was like, it's easy for people to disregard our issues, because when another proposal dies, they don't cry like we cry. I mean, people in the community, they're cried, they're destroyed. People get excited when there's the opportunity of something to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, they're crushed. Politicians and these people in power, oh, the proposal didn't pass. Well, it's fine. I'm still going to go home with my family. I'm good. I'm chilling. I'm still going to get my big check. I'm still going to get my fundraising money. I don't have anything to worry about. A proposal dies in Congress, millions of immigrants are like, shit, what's going to happen with my future? What's going to happen with my family? What's going to happen now? They cry, they suffer, they're stressed by these things. And we need people in positions of power who feel that same thing. When something doesn't get done, they feel the urge to get it done, because if not, it's gonna be terrible for the community. But that'll take time. And that's why right now I'm focused, and a lot of people like me who do this work and are up and coming, if you want to call it that way, are focused on, staying consistent, staying true to their values, and then seeing what the panorama looks in a couple of years. But I'm hopeful. I mean, I think there's a lot of Spanish sayings that really speak to me. Another one that says is, no hay mal que dure 100 años. There's no bad that lasts 100 years. Sooner or later, something's going to happen, and I'm going to keep pushing until it does happen.
Yeah, you're one of the most enlightened, if not the most enlightened 23-year-old I've probably ever spoken to.
Thank you.
But the best thing that ever happened to me is that I voted for Barack. I'm old enough to have voted for Barack Obama in 2008. And I remember thought everything was going to change, because he said, my first year in I'm going to pass the DREAM Act. We thought it like completely. And so when he got in, everybody was crying, because we thought, okay, here's the change, man. And he didn't do anything. And then he became the deporter in chief. He deported more people than anybody. So I don't wait for any president. I don't wait for any politician to do anything. It's actually people like you, actually doing the work, showing up, collecting funds, getting people, out. And also all your followers, you are, that's another dirty word. You are influencing them like on a daily basis, changing their world, changing how they see the world. And then they, in their lives, are different, and they make everybody different around you. So you're, like you said, you want to be a force for good. You've already done it, man. Thank you so much, man.
No, and thanks you for having me. And we'll stay in touch, and anything, just let me know.
When you're in Vegas, man, I'll take you out to dinner.
Yeah, no, my classes got moved online for the first two weeks. So I'm gonna be there around February if we go back in person. I don't know, but I'll let you know for sure. And thank you so much for having me.
Let me know, man. Have a good weekend, bro.
Estamos, cuídate. Bye bye.
Peace.